Welcome to the Everyday GSD podcast. Today's special guest is my friend and race car driver, amongst other things, Jack Dossey. Did I say it right?
Yep.
I know I always fuck up your name. And it's funny because you asked me earlier, how do you pronounce my name? Because if you read it, it sounds fucked up, but that's just the way it is, right?
Yeah, mine's the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got a lot to talk about, man.
Yeah, I've been excited. I've always wanted to be on your show ever since we talked about you were going to do it. I was like, well, I can't wait for a day that I can be on there.
Well, and I'm glad I got told by several people to have you on the show, but I'm just excited. I want listeners to hear your story. So my first question is, you're a race car driver, and it's a dirt track race. Is this what we call it?
So it's just dirt racing.
Racing.
We run dirt modifieds. We came from an asphalt background, and a lot of our peers and like fans and everything were like, why are you making the transition? I'm like, I've raced asphalt for 16 years. I'm ready for something different. And being 23 years old at that time, they're like, you've been racing for 16 years. So 24 now, it's going to be 17 years, starting in April.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. We're, a lot of people, they say put in 25 years or 20 years at their job and they can retire. Well, I'm not looking to retire anytime soon.
You're too young to retire.
Exactly.
So how old are you now?
24. Just turned 24 in January.
Just turned 24. And you've won several championships.
Yeah. I've actually won a championship in almost everything I've drove, which is kind of a staple, something nice to hang your hat on.
Yeah. So let the listeners know about what kind of racing that you've done where you've won. I know Everyday GSD podcast sponsored you last year.
Yeah.
And you actually took first place in what? Explain that.
So we won the track championship at Circle City Raceway, the new track in Indianapolis. And it was their first full season just doing a weekly show. And they had UMP modifieds, dirt modifieds, as they call them, as a weekly, race. And we won a couple of them. We set fast time a few times. We had like 6 or 7 top 5s, some good top 10 finishes. Ended up getting the championship, and it was my first full season in the car, so that was cool too.
Yeah, it's very cool. So when you say you have fast car and top, so what does that mean?
So like fast qualifier is the fastest car to take time in that time trial. So we go out for hot laps, and qualifying is the same thing, same time for us. Some of the upper divisions, they get to go out for hot laps, which is your practice, and then they go out for qualifying afterwards. Well, sometimes we're kind of a sideshow for like the late models or the sprint cars, which are bigger title series. So we just get practice hot laps and qualifying at the same time.
Right.
So top qualifier, they do it by group. So they'll split the field up into 2 or 3 groups, and I was fast qualifier in my group. It was I think it was like close to 5 or 6 times.
Okay, and that's in one season.
Yeah.
And so does that give you points to go?
Yep. So that all goes towards the championships points total. So you would get 10 points for fast time, and it would go like 9 points for second, 8 for third, and then, so on. And usually there was 8 to 10 cars in a group. So that was kind of, something that it helped us, keep ahead in the points. And we got a couple feature wins as well, so that helped as well.
Okay, so you get the points. So is it possible you could not win all year but still win the championship?
Yeah. Yeah, which it sounds kind of fucked up. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
We did win a championship.
That's the first F-bomb.
We're keeping tally. Yeah. But honestly, we did win a championship like that in 2017, and it was on asphalt in the Jags Tour and pavement late models. And, it pissed a lot of people off, but it's not like we were a back marker. We were a top contender. We just never had the luck to finish it off. We had a few fast times, which helped us. And we had more top 5s than anybody else, and more second places than anybody else too. First loser, as they call it. But, it's just at the end of the day, everybody that's there is putting in the work to win the championship. So, I mean, it sucks if you go out there and you win 5 races and you don't get the title. But at the same time, if you have 5 wins and 5 DNFs, you know, you're not going to win the championship.
And what's a DNF?
Did not finish.
Oh, do you hear that, Justin? A DNF is did not finish.
Story of my life.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
That's great. So you technically could win 5 races and then you got however many DNFs, and then someone like you who has a handful of second places comes in, and then you could win the title match or the championship.
For sure, because while that guy is, you know, wrecked or broke sitting in the infield not racing, you know, I'm still racking up points and finishing second. You know, it's not a win, but I'm completing all the laps. In 2017, I was the only car in the Jegs division to complete every single lap all season long.
Okay. So what's the Jegs division?
So it was it was just a series. It was a pavement late model series based out of Indiana, and we traveled the Midwest. And it was called the Jeg CRA All-Stars Tour. Okay.
So quick question. I'm going to have a shit ton of them because I love learning about this stuff, and I know my listeners want to as well. So you just said that was on a pavement track.
Yep.
But we just said you raced dirt track.
Yeah.
So walk me through this.
So I've always wanted to run dirt. Asphalt's fun. Don't get me wrong. I love all racing, but there's just something about being sideways and, you know, throwing dirt and, you know, it's just different. It's just a different breed. And I've always wanted to try it. And finally that opportunity arose in 2020, towards the end of the year. And we were kind of getting burnt out on the pavement stuff, having to travel so much and having to spend so much money as far as, because the tires you got to spend 3 times as much money on tires, because obviously a dirt track isn't going to be as abrasive as pavement. So there was a lot of cost differences. And then some of the people that helped us and my peers, they were kind of over the traveling. They wanted to spend time with their kids or their grandkids in some cases. And, you know, some of them, like my nephews, they race out at the Indianapolis Speedrome in the same division I started in. So that's cool. But, you know, it just kind of worked out, and the opportunity came up it was the beginning of 21 to get in a dirt car. And as soon as I got home, I sold all the asphalt stuff within 2 weeks. I mean, it was just that much more fun.
Really? It's that much more fun.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not spending, you know, racing is expensive. It's just an expensive hobby, but we're not spending as much in travel, and the tire bill is much cheaper as well. So that's cool. But yeah, I mean, just the amount of fun that we started having. And as soon as we switched over to dirt, there's, you know, you go to an asphalt track and it's just a lot of pressure, you know, constantly. And there's still, I do go to some asphalt tracks, and I get hired to be a spotter, which is, you know, I'm standing on top of the grandstands, and I've got a driver, and I'm telling him what's going on around him and making him aware of his surroundings, because some of those tracks are so big and you're going so fast, you really need to have someone in your ear or just someone to coach you along. And I was spotting at the Winchester 400 a couple months ago, and man, you just walk in the gates and you can just cut the tension with a knife. You walk into a dirt track, it's not like that. Everybody's just happy to be there.
Right. And is it more family oriented? Is it what makes it a happier place in the race world?
It's just you know, it's the working man, and it's like you said, family oriented. There's a lot of just blue collar guys that they all, like, their whole family, they just work on the cars all week, and
right.
They're just excited to get to the track. And, you know, a lot of them are really good. You know, if you want to see some of your best racing talent in the world, go to your local dirt track.
Okay. So that's a good message, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to see some of the best racing, go to your local dirt track.
Yeah.
And how many local dirt tracks do we have, let's say, in the Indianapolis greater area? So
the Indianapolis area just has the one dirt track, which is Marion County Fairgrounds Circle City Raceway. But within an hour and a half of there, you've got 8 dirt tracks. I mean, I could just, you know, we could list them all off. I mean, they're everywhere. You've got Gas City I-69 Speedway in Gas City, Indiana. You got Kokomo Speedway, Kokomo. Lincoln Park Speedway in Putnamville, Paragon Speedway, Brownstown. I mean, there's so many tracks that, I mean, it's just, you can go anywhere, any given weekend, an hour and a half away, and you can race at a different track almost all year.
And this is all dirt tracks.
Yep.
Okay. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't, like, if you're not in like the dirt racing clique, or, you know, weren't kind of, you know, raised around it, you don't really know where some of them are, or that there's that many of them just under your nose.
Okay. And you said raised around it because obviously I was reading over all your stuff, your bio, and your father, your grandmother.
Yeah,
tell me about this shit.
So, my grandma actually ran. It was called a powder puff race back in, I believe it was like the late '60s, early '70s, and she ended up, she won one of them, I believe, and she wrecked in the second one. But she, you know, it's cool to say that my grandma actually raced. You know,
hell yeah.
Nobody else can say that. I can promise you that. But you know, my grandpa raced, my dad raced, my uncle raced, even my girlfriend's family, her entire family raced. And that's actually how we met, is because our racing families. It's just,
right.
It's really cool.
And the racing family, it's a community.
Oh, for sure. It's more of a family. It's more of a family. I mean, you know, you and I might battle it out all year and, you know, cuss each other out at the racetrack, you know, we get into it or whatever. But if something happens to you, I'm going to be one of the first ones to come over and try and help you get your car back together so we can battle it out on the racetrack.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
So that's what's cool.
And what about when, like, I remember you were sponsored also by Wahlburgers.
Yeah.
The burger place, and your car was at Wahlburgers. You were doing like a demo there. You were signing your, you know, autographs and stuff. And you were concerned people were going to come and look at something on the car.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about that.
So we started out the season kind of, and about mid-season we found something, and I mean we were fast, and it kind of took people by surprise because not a lot of dirt experience, and you know, here we are, we're setting fast time at, you know, different racetracks besides just Circle City, and we're winning heat races, and we're a front contender in the feature, the main event. And so then while I was there, we were actually sitting at the bar, and I got a call, and someone had said that they were going to come try and take a video of the underneath of the car. So we hurried up and we covered the back of the car up, and, you know, it wasn't long after that we were putting it back in the trailer because everything is so secretive. And if you can, you know, if you get an advantage, you know, they're going to find it eventually.
Right.
But like they'll stumble upon it themselves by just trial and error. But, you know, for those 3 weeks, you know, you have the advantage. So that's just, you know, it's a cutthroat industry. And, you know, like we're going to be putting the car in, you know, the new car in the car show. And, you know, I've already got it figured out on how we're going to hide certain aspects of the car.
It's very secretive. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And then there's sometimes that you can kind of make it obvious that you're, you know, you want to cover this up, but you're not hiding anything there. You're just deterring their eyes.
Okay, so you pretend that something's important there.
Yeah.
And they're wondering what that is, but really you're just
for sure
kind of a little bait and switch.
Yeah, just a little segue, like a little story from back in the day that
we have all day, bro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My dad, when he raced, he used to race figure eight at the Speedrome, and they stumbled on something. His chassis manufacturer, Ron Tomasak, at the time, it started the new era by developing just new technology into the world that, you know, or the racing world that people back then hadn't really seen. And so they had some stuff going on in the rear end of the car, and they put a bright white sway bar. You know, everybody, you know, just sway bar, it's just going to be black. It's, you know, just to keep the front end, you know, stable. And they painted theirs bright white to where it was just obvious that you could see it. And, you know, everybody was complaining about the sway bar that does nothing. And really the advancements were all on the rear of the car.
And so what would they be complaining about?
So back then,
or think they're complaining about, right?
they really didn't know. They just saw how obvious that it was just white. And a lot of people, they ran their sway bars on top of the frame and, would run bars down to the A-frames to, that way it had more leverage. It could keep the car more controllable. Well, Dad's cars it had them on the bottom like a factory car would. And nobody really cared until they painted it bright white and made it obvious right there's a sway bar. And everybody hated it. And it did nothing. I mean, there was no advantage to it. It was just something different.
Just something different.
Something to catch their eye, and they're like, well, that's why he's winning.
And that had nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
How much of winning is talent versus the apparatus, the vehicle you're driving?
That's a very tough question.
That's why I asked.
That's a very tough question. So, I'll take you back to the asphalt world. On dirt, it doesn't matter near as much because dirt is more forgiving. Because the track is constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. So my car might not be as good as yours, but I might be able to find a little bit more traction by moving up the racetrack and finding some moisture in the track. So on asphalt,
and this is in dirt.
Yes.
Okay.
And on asphalt, once it starts taking rubber, there's usually one, maybe two grooves that you can race in and be good. I can start out the race and be horrible, and you're going to finish horrible because everybody's running the same groove. They're in the same spot, and everybody on asphalt, they're right there, together as far as time. And, little Billy over here can be, a half-ass race car driver, but his dad could be a millionaire and have engineers working on the car and all this and that. And he could win every race there is that season. But someone else over here might have a decent car, but be an absolute wheelman and not have any money behind him, and he'll run mediocre because of that. But in the dirt world, it's a little bit different because at the start of the night, it matters on how much money you've got in your car and what kind of car you got. But when they drop the green flag in the A main, it's all in the driver's hands. The car doesn't really matter.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting to me.
And that's another reason that I like the dirt racing too, is because the driver can shine. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got probably the best cars you can get. Ex-NASCAR driver David Stremme is who builds my cars.
And what's his name?
David Stremme.
Okay.
Yep. And he owns Lethal Chassis.
And he builds your cars.
Yep. And I mean, it's not just for me, but it's for, he's probably got 300-400 of them out there right now. So.
Okay. And you want to build cars, don't you? Didn't you?
I don't want to build chassis. I'm not smart enough for that. But I love fabricating with sheet metal. I love to build the bodies. I love to, I just love metalworking, and I like to work on race cars. And like I told you the other day, I'm not going to be happy until I'm working on race cars for a living.
Right.
But
so what pays the bills right now for you?
So what pays the bills is I work at the family business. We own a salvage yard on the east side of Indianapolis, and basically, just working on cars. I pretty much do it all. Not by myself, but I fill in wherever I'm needed there. So if we're down a mechanic, I go back in the shop and I do mechanic work. If we're down a man on the counter, I run the counter. If we're down a guy in the yard, coring and crushing cars, I'm back there crushing cars. So, I mean, whatever needs done, I do. And to kind of help pay for the racing, we also, some of the cars that we get through auction are too nice to junk. So, I fix whatever minor things they might need, and we sell them, especially, when it's like tax time, like right now.
Right.
Yeah. My phone's been crazy off the hook.
So you're everyday GSDing behind the scenes of racing to support the hobby / sport that also brings in an income.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no real way to make money racing unless, they always say the only way to make money or make $1 million with racing is to start with 2. So,
It's same in the restaurant industry.
but in all seriousness, I mean, there is ways to make money in the motorsports industry, but you've got to be innovative, and you just have to have time and discipline and make yourself, like, push yourself to the next limit and out of your comfort zone to get there. And that's what I'm trying to do.
That's awesome, man. I fucking love this. You said wheelman, right? And so that instantly makes me think of this question. What does it feel like to race?
There's really no way to put it in words. You feel like Superman. I mean, that's about the only way I can put it. Gear, as soon as I put the helmet on, I don't like to pull the helmet on until we're about to roll it out on the track, because the adrenaline starts pumping and I'm ready to go. You kind of, you see like a boxer in his ring, he's loosening up and everything. I try and keep myself calm and keep my composure, but sometimes it's just, I got, like, my thing is I tap my foot in the car, or I shake my leg, or, people walk by in the cars, just shaking, and they're like, what is going on? And I'm like, look, I gotta go. But,
right.
It's just, I don't know. It's the most exciting thing in the world. And someone like me, an adrenaline junkie, like, there's nothing like it. I mean, I love to go watch hockey games and stuff like that.
That's right. You're a Blackhawks fan?
Big Blackhawks fan.
And local team.
Indy Fuel.
Indy Fuel?
Yep. But, yeah, I mean, hockey is kind of, one of those adrenaline-driven sports. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think it could hold a candle to, sitting in a race car.
And how fast are you going when you're going around the track? I guess that's a loaded question, right? Because
it depends on the track.
Okay. On average.
I'd say on average, at least 90 miles an hour, at least. But as the night goes on, the track gets slicker. So you kind of lose traction. So you'll start out the night, say 85, 90 miles an hour, and you'll end the night probably closer to 75. But you're still, 75 miles an hour when you're sideways is pretty damn fast.
Because how often are you sideways?
Constantly.
Is that why the car is shaped like it is?
Yep.
Explain that to me.
So,
or I guess to everyone who's listening.
Man, so basically you want the left rear to stand up, hike up.
The left rear?
Yep.
Okay.
So, like in some of the pictures, you'll see a big gap in between the left rear tire and the fender.
Correct.
Because, and it's not like that when it's just sitting. When it's just sitting static, about to pull out onto the track, not moving, the tire is stuck up in the fender well. And what that does is when that left rear pulls down, it's on a pendulum, basically. So that left rear tire is going to swing down, and it's going to push the right rear tire back and create rear steer, which is going to help you get into the corner. So a lot of times the cars look sideways, and they're not really that sideways. It's called yaw or skew in the car, and the car it's built sideways, basically.
It's built sideways. So can you drive this car down the street, hypothetically, straight?
You can. It's just not very easy. Because, so like if you've ever seen, you might have seen it that day at Wahlburgers when I drove it around to the trailer. As soon as you pick up as soon as you take off or pick up the gas, it's automatically hiking left rear up. So it's already building rear steer into it. So as soon as it does that, you've got to go ahead and just turn the wheel to keep it, straight. And it's going to kind of dog leg a little bit. It's going to kind of move side, it's going to move at an angle. So it's pretty cool. I mean, you'll have to come to the shop one time and just
I for sure will. I appreciate that.
You'll have to see the geometry behind these cars. I mean, my hat's off to David and, all these guys that build these cars, because there's a lot of engineering behind them.
I'm going to take that as an official invite for Justin and I.
For sure. I always got beer. Always got beer.
Always got beer. I'll bring you some koozies, some everyday GSD koozies.
Yeah, I love that. We need some of those for sure.
So you work at the business at home, which is your parents or your family business.
Yep.
But your family was also in racing.
Yeah.
So you were raised around racing. So Tell me what motivated you to do this. You just woke up one day and said, fuck it.
Yeah, kind of. But at the same time, being raised around it so much, like I was born in January. Racing season starts somewhere around the end of March. I was at my first race and, towards the end of March, and I was only like 4 months old. So, I mean, that right there, I was almost 4 months old at my first race. So there's not a lot of people that can say that. There's not a lot of people crazy enough to take their kid to a racetrack at 4 months old, but I'm so glad that my parents are, because I probably wouldn't be here today.
Right.
But it's great. It was such a family thing. At such a young age, I was always in the shop with my dad and the guys, learning about the cars. And, I've always chased that. And then the opportunity arose for me to get in a go-kart, or it's called a junior fast kart at Speedrome, which is kind of their like division, their farm division. That way the kids can, work their way through the ranks and hopefully stay there and race, or be like me and a couple of other drivers and spread their wings and go do some cool stuff, And, that was just really cool. I thank God every day that my dad gave me that opportunity, and my mom. But, it was kind of inevitable that, I was named after 2 generations of racers. I had to be the third.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Third generation racer. And there's not a lot of people that can say that either.
And is your grandfather still alive?
Yeah.
He is.
Yep.
So how proud is he when he comes to watch you race?
Yeah. He loves it. I mean, he eats it up. He owns his own salvage yard in Greenfield. So, I mean, he's kind of usually busy there, but whenever he can make it out, I mean, he just eats it up. And
that's awesome.
He can't believe how far the technology of the race cars have come.
I bet.
Like his first race car, they have to have a roll cage. And that was one of the only rules back then when he started. And he didn't have the money to build a steel roll cage in it. So him and his 2 sons, my dad and my uncle, they went to the local hardware store and they bought a couple 2x4s and wrapped them in roll bar padding.
Get the fuck out of here.
They wrapped him in roll bar padding, and he ran the first season with a wooden roll cage.
To pretend it looked like a real one.
Yep.
Justin, do you fucking hear that?
I'm telling you, we're all fucking crazy, man. Whatever we can do to get out on the racetrack, we're going to do it. But,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but there is one thing that I don't skimp out on, and it's safety. I mean, there's been some guys that, got hurt really bad and stuff by skimping out on safety, and I don't want to be one of those guys. I mean,
right.
I've got some really good safety equipment, and it's probably saved my life a couple times.
How many close calls have you had?
I'd say
too many.
At least 3 really bad ones.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I got a couple of onboard videos from one of them, and I mean, it was nasty. Asphalt track up in Marne, Michigan, called Berlin Raceway. And it just, that one I had to go to a chiropractor for about 8 months afterwards to get straightened out. But I didn't stop for the season. I mean, we fixed the car and, picked our pieces up and went on to the next race. But yeah, after the season was over, I was like, all right, I got to get this straightened out. I was pretty jacked up.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to admit that then. They wouldn't have let me race.
Right. And does your family have input on that when they realize you just got in an accident and you're kind of jacked up, as you said?
My mom does. My dad, he's like, shake it off, dude. Come on. Rub some dirt on it. Let's go. And that's kind of my mentality too. I'm like, man, that really freaking hurt. But, you can't, you got to jump back on the horse that threw you off,
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to quit.
Yeah, because you're not a fucking quitter.
Yeah. I've never have been. It's not in my DNA. But there, that one up in Michigan, it was pretty rough. My mom was like, we had a race the following weekend. She's like, should we get you checked out for like a concussion or something? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm like, man, I got a fucking headache.
Right.
So like, probably, being just 17 years old, I'm like, I'll be fine. But there's, times I'm like, forgetting stuff or forgetful. And it's like, maybe I should have went to a doctor.
Right.
But, I mean, never gonna know now.
Right. And it's interesting because you said you're not a quitter. Where do you get that from?
Mainly, well, really both of my parents. My dad, he started from, really nothing, and him and my mom together built an empire of a business, a small family-owned business. Together we've all went and done some really cool racing throughout the past, 20 years, and traveled the country. We've done a lot of cool stuff, and, thick and thin, we're there for each other, and it just clicks off. Just seeing someone work as hard as my dad did, it's hard to give up when he never did, and he went through stuff that was way tougher.
Right.
So
in racing or just in life?
I would say both, in life and in, racing. He definitely worked his ass off.
Yeah.
And so did my mom as well, and neither of them never really took no for an answer. If they needed something, they made it happen. If I needed something, they made it happen. So my hat's always going to be off to them for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about the business of racing, because obviously your parents, they instilled in you not to fucking quit.
Yeah.
But you also learn from them, besides what they taught you, that you learn from watching them.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me about just the business of racing.
It's it's very cutthroat. Man, it's different. It's very different. It's almost kind of like Wall Street, someone can be, massaging you, rubbing your back or whatever, and they're just reaching into your pocket. That's all they care about is the dollar in your pocket.
Because none of this shit's cheap.
No, it's not. But there are some really good, wholehearted people in the motorsports industry. But unfortunately, there are some shiesty ones too that just want to fuck you. But it's a very, very tough business. It's a very tough industry to get into. But once you're in, your word is worth something. It's kind of old school as far as that. And as soon as you get a bad name, word travels like that. It's just, it's funny how you can just get shuffled out and nobody wants to deal with you at all. So, main thing is just keep a good name and just, don't be just a dick. There's a lot of people that, are really arrogant, or, they're just an asshole, and they get a really bad rap for that, and nobody wants to screw with them at the end of the day. So, it's a very cutthroat industry, and it's very follow the leader. So like, say I buy this chassis and I'm winning all these races, and you're like, well, that's why he's winning. So you go buy that chassis, then, Joe Blow goes and buys it. And then, next thing you know, the stock of that race car has just plummeted. And then,
What do you mean when you say that?
So there's so many of them out there that you don't have to buy a new one. And then whenever you go to sell it, there's 50 of them on the internet for sale. It's like, well, he wants 20 grand for that one. Well, I can buy it for 15 over here from this guy. So it's just kind of funny how that works. And then lo and behold, here comes another chassis builder, and they stumble on something, and then it's just a big continuous cycle. And I've seen it multiple times. I'm more of a loyal person. If my chassis manufacturer is having a rough patch or whatever, we're going to stick it through. I'm going to, use my, my development, and my research. I'm going to try and help him overcome it. And, there's not a lot of people that are loyal like that in the industry anymore.
And that puts your name at a much more respected level than people that aren't doing that. And you learn that, I'm assuming, from your family.
Yeah. You've got to have loyalty at the end of the day. If you're not a loyal person, you're not going to get anybody that wants to help you. You're not going to get any good relationships. And you're not going to attract fans, because, they might not see what happens in the, behind closed doors, but, word does travel fast. And there's a lot of people that are like, man, I don't like him. He's an ass, and, just being disloyal is just, it's not a good thing for the sport. It's really not.
Right. And in life, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it transfers, and transitions over to everyday life. If you're an asshole, nobody's going to want to hang out with you.
Don't be a dick. Right?
Yeah. Just don't be a dick. Just be happy.
and get out of your way when you're running around that track doing 90 fucking miles an hour.
For sure. Yeah. Get the hell out of the way.
Get the hell out of the way. Oh shit. So is there, and this is probably an odd question, and I was thinking about this before you came on the show. So right now you've, in my opinion, from looking at your stats, I was going to read them off at the beginning of the show, but to be honest with you, you have too many wins. We would spend the first 20 minutes talking about them all. But I mean, just to highlight some of them, I mean, you've got so many second places, third places, 2008, 9, 10, 2015, 16, 17, 18, All-Star Tour Championship, most popular driver, because you're not a dick.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I try not to be. I mean, sometimes, at the track in my element, I can be a little bit of an asshole, but I would never be an asshole to a fan. I mean,
right.
The fans are there to support you, and people, there's even some NASCAR drivers that are like, it's like, hey, can I get an autograph or whatever? And they're like, no, I don't have time for you. I'm not here for you. Well, that's bullshit, because you are there for them. The only reason you're there is because of them. If there's no fans in the seats, we don't get to do what we love.
Say that again.
I mean, for sure. I mean, if there's no fans in the seats, we're not there. And, as a racer, you're an entertainer. You've got to entertain and, make time for your fans. There was one time last year we ended up getting in a wreck in like a preliminary race and tore the car up pretty good, but there was a couple of little kids that were walking through the pits, and, I'm thrashing on the race car with the guys, getting ready for, we ended up having to run the B main, but those little kids wanted a picture and an autograph, and I'll be damned if I didn't set my tools down and go over and take pictures with them, autographs, and I mean, I've got enough guys to help me regardless, but at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, because those kids are going to remember that for the next 10 years, and maybe it'll inspire them to do something like I'm doing. So that's why I love about the sport,
Yeah. I can see it in your eyes when you talk about it. It's, and I don't want to say emotional, but it's heartfelt.
It very much is. We went through some tough times with COVID. It kind of hurt the family business a little bit. It was just really weird times in 2020. And that's kind of where we decided we were going to do something different from the asphalt stuff, so we didn't have to travel as much. And, there was a time during COVID that I didn't know if I would be able to do what I loved anymore, because nobody knew what was going to happen, with whatever that was. I don't know. But
we don't talk about that on the show.
Yeah, but but whatever it was, I mean, at the beginning, nobody knew what was happening. So there was a time of disbelief that I didn't know if I was going to ever be able to, go to a racetrack again and spend time with, friends, enemies, family, whatever, and chase that adrenaline. So that was weird. It was a very weird time, and I wish I could just forget about it all. But at the same time, it opened my eyes and made me realize, that maybe I had took it for granted some. And it's like, I can't live without that. So right then and there is when I'm like, I need to maybe work harder and, make sure that we can continue to do this, so, there's a lot of people that use social media to badmouth a racetrack, and, there's racetracks that close every day because the internet's killed them, you can live stream races instead of going and sitting in the seats. Well, that track doesn't make money from you sitting on your couch and watching it. They make money from you buying a ticket, buying concessions, buying a beer, T-shirts, whatever. That's how they make their money. They don't really make money from us. I mean, they have to pay us to be there. So they make money from fans sitting in the seats. And if they don't have that, they don't have a choice but to close. And there's been quite a few of them close in the past couple of years. And, it's just kind of opens your eyes. It's like, you know what? If I have a bad experience there, I might not want to go back, but you have to. You've got to support that racetrack, or else, if your fans don't want to follow you there, or, if you get on Facebook or social media and start running your mouth about it, someone's going to be like, well, I don't want to go race there. So your group of fans isn't going to follow you to watch you there, or, fans are going to be, see it and be like, oh, well, this and this happened one time, so we're not going to support them anymore. So it's just, it's a really touchy thing. So any chance I get, I'm trying to advocate for the sport, and you'll never catch me on any social media talking bad about any racetrack, because what happened to me, whatever, it is what it is, but it doesn't need, it's not everybody else's business. And just because it happened to me, it could have been a fluke. It might not happen to you.
Right.
And it might not have been the track's fault. It could have just been one of those situations where, just a victim of circumstance or something got overlooked. I mean, it's just,
or it's your fault.
Yeah. Or I fucked up.
Yeah.
Which, I will admit that it happens. I'm not perfect. Everybody's human.
Right.
So, and a lot of people are too prideful. They're too prideful to admit that they're just human.
I think too many people don't look in the mirror and realize a lot of the problem is them.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, if you're on Facebook with your problems, you might be the problem.
Justin shaking his head. Do you want him to say that one again, Justin?
Says my girlfriend every fucking day. I'm sorry, my ex-girlfriend.
His ex-girlfriend. So, talk to me about the unity or the camaraderie between the drivers. Because I know you guys, you're competing.
We are.
But
there's people that at the racetrack that I don't per se associate with, and it's not that they've done anything wrong. I'm just, usually when I show up to a track, I'm just kind of there. I'm not there to make friends. I'll say it that way. But at the same time, when I made the transition to dirt racing, I did make a bunch of new friends, and there's quite a few of them that, we text back and forth at least once or twice a week. And it's just, it's cool. And some of us, we might get into it on the racetrack, and we might cuss each other out and be like, dude, that was stupid. What are you doing? Or, whatever, we just ignore it, give each other a couple days or whatever. And then, hey man, I'm sorry. I fucked up. I wrecked you, whatever. I didn't mean to do that, So it's just the way that it is in the dirt community. Everybody's there to have fun and to race. So you can have friends that, they're all there to do the same thing. And just because you might collide on the racetrack doesn't mean that it has to end your friendship, is what I've learned. And it just makes it that much more fun to go to a track. If something happens, you're going to feel bad. And, if that person, they're going to know that you feel bad about it. And they're going to know that it's heartfelt when you're like, hey man, I'm sorry, and let's fix this, so that's what's cool about it. Most of us, there's a few of us that are pretty close. There's some of us that it's like, he's cool. And then there's always the one guy you don't like.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah,
right.
it's got to happen. You got to have a rival. But I can't really say that I do have a rival in the dirt world right now. I hope I don't.
Well, you're the fucking champion right now. That's why. Justin, he doesn't have a rival because he's the fucking champion.
That might be true. I might have a target on my back and just don't know it. I don't know. But that's just what's cool about it. We're all there to have fun. So at the end of the day, if something happens, it's, everybody knows that it's not intentional. Right.
Now, is it a community where, and I don't know if I'm going to ask this question right, but in my head, I know exactly what I want to say. So I'm going to try to articulate this. Is this a community where when, let's say right before you guys are going out racing, you're getting your cars ready, and this guy, something breaks on the car, and they're scrambling to get it fixed, and they're missing something. And I don't know whether they're missing a part or a tool to fix it. You're their competitor. Obviously, you want to beat them, but you also respect them as a racer. And I'm not talking someone you don't like. I'm talking, a good competitor. Is someone from your team or in your trailer gonna, if they came up to you and said, "Hey, we need this. Do you have this extra tool we can use, or do you have this part?" Is that you're like, we'll help you after the race, or are you like, you know what, we're all in this we're in this sport together. Let's do this.
Yeah,
let's be fair.
that's how it is. It's let's help each other out, because I want to beat you, but I can't beat you if you're not on the racetrack. And like you might be one of the better racers in the country, and you're asking me, hey man, I need to borrow this or that, and it's like, some people would just be like, no, I'm not helping you.
But not you.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'll help you. And it's like, well, why do you want to help me? Well, because I can't beat you unless we race together. I might get my ass kicked, but I want to stay, I want the opportunity to try and kick your ass. And that's
But you're all friends?
Some of us. I mean, but, at the same time, like me and a good friend of mine, Cody, we're really good friends. We play Xbox together. We do all kinds of stuff. We hang out at each other's shops. But I don't think you'll see two people race each other harder than me and him. And, there was a couple of times that we got together last year. We didn't really, tear each other up, but, just kind of banging doors and stuff. And, after a race, we're laughing about it. It's like, at the very last race of the year, he ended up spinning out in front of me because he caught a rut, and it, just turned the car around. And I was, balls deep behind him, just wide open. I'm like, oh shit, it's either hit him or, just loop it and back it in the wall. Well,
I smashed him.
No. I ended up getting the car to pitch and, back into the wall, and it ended up tearing the car up pretty good. And so I'm not going to let him live that down, because he's like, oh my God, I thought you were going to cream me. I was like, yeah, well, you ended up helping me knock my clip off, and he's going to be pissed I'm telling this story. But, but yeah, it's one of those things where everything that he says, I'm like, dude, remember what you did to me at Circle City? And he's like, I didn't do it, but that's our relationship. We like to battle it out on the racetrack, and we like to laugh about it later,
Right.
And another one of my good friends that same night, because we set fast time, broke the track record that night, and
just breaking records.
Yeah, might as well break them.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. But we led some of the race, and we had some problems, and another one of my good friends ended up just a victim of circumstance. He ended up wrecking me out of the race, and nothing intentional or anything, but it is what it is. It's gonna happen when you're friends with your competitors. And me and him didn't talk for a couple of days after that. I was mad at the situation. I wasn't mad at him. I'm like, of 30 people out there, it had to be one of my friends to wreck me.
Right.
So it's
expensive when you wreck.
Yeah. I mean, it ended up, that race car is it's trash now, but it's not anything that he necessarily did wrong. It's not anything that I necessarily did wrong. It was just hard racing, and you just got to pick up the pieces and move on from there. It's not worth ending a friendship over.
Right.
But and there's people that look at that differently. They're like, what, screw him. He wrecked me. He junked my race car. He cost me a bunch of money. Well, here's the thing. It's going to happen. And when you pull the race car out on the racetrack, that it's 50-50 if you're going to tear it up that night. So
really,
yeah,
flip of the coin.
Yeah, it's unfortunately sometimes that's how it is. It's like a grenade with the pin pulled on it. It's gonna get tore up eventually.
Yeah, it's gonna blow up.
Yeah,
eventually you're gonna let that thing go.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. You just have to make good terms with it. It sucks. Nobody wants to tear a race car up. But
earlier you mentioned you were talking about fans and how important they are to you. And I was at Wahlburgers at one of the events you were at last year when you were, I think, maybe mid-season. And it must have been 100 degrees, high humidity. And there was a line of people out there. And you were sitting there sweating your balls off, signing autographs and taking pictures. And I looked at you and I remember thinking, I was like, this guy really gives a shit. You could tell by the smile on your face. And I believe your mom was there. Bill was there. Bill Whitley, great guy, who's a huge supporter of yours.
Oh, yeah.
It made me have like a not necessarily a new respect because I didn't really know you that well, but a respect for you because I was like, this guy's really doing what he says he's doing.
Yeah, and I like to be a man of my word. Like if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it happen. I feel like as a race car driver, and especially doing a public event like that, if fans are going to walk up and they're intrigued, or, you know, they have a question, or they want a picture, an autograph, or t-shirt, whatever it may be, you know, if you don't want to interact with fans, don't do it, and don't take your car to an event like that.
Because it's 100 degrees for them too.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to come out there and deal with that. They could have just walked inside, got them, you know, their food and left, you know, whatever. But instead they're like, let's go talk to this kid, you know, let's go see what this is about. You know, because if you're not in the motorsports industry and you see one of these cars, you're like, what the hell is that thing? You know, like that looks crazy, because they're just a radical looking race car. But, you know, just being a part of the motorsports industry, you have to entreat, you know, you've got to catch the fan's eye, and you got to try and make new fans, because, you know, let's face it, the older fans are, you know, they're not going to be here to continue on. So you gotta constantly bring new people in and new eyes and get new fans in the seats. And, you know, there's no better way to do that than like events like that. And it helped Wahlburgers out that day, and it helped me out that day too.
Yeah. So it's a win-win.
For sure.
And you gave your word you were going to be there, so you were there. And I remember specifically that day, it literally was 100 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fucking hot.
Yeah. There was a couple times I would go inside, and I'd sip on a beer for a minute, and then as soon as I would see somebody, you know, walk up to a car, it's like, you know, I'm not going to let them sit there and wonder, like, what is this? You know, I'm going to go out there and talk to them. There was a couple of times that I had to tag Bill in, like, hey, I need a break for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but, you know, stuff like that it's really cool. It's cool to see people's excitement and, like, see their mind working when you're talking about what you do and what you love to do.
Right. So Bill and VA owns the Pinnacle Firearms.
Yeah.
Bill and VA. So what's their relationship with you? How are they involved with you?
So I actually met VA when I was 7 years old when I started racing, because I ran with his son and Bill's son. And so we've known each other since, you know, the past, you know, 15, 16 years. So that's kind of how it's worked out. And Bill and V have always been really good friends. And it's turned into, you know, Bill just, you know, he was like, hey, you know, anybody wants to help out with some tires? And V's like, well, I'm opening this gun shop. You know, I need to get some, you know, some traffic in through there. I'd be more than happy to help. So, and thankfully, you know, in the past four years or so, he's helped us. And, you know, it's, you know, I can't do it without guys like that, you know,
Right.
In any way that I can help them, you know, I'm going to. And so that's pretty much the relationship there. Me and Bill, we've been really close for the past 9-10 years. And, you know, honestly, I mean, there's a big age gap, but he's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And I mean,
love it.
You know, I love that dude to death. If he called me right now and needed me to go do something, I'm going to do it. And, you know, as far as the racing standpoint, I might not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for him, because he's helped me generate some sponsorships and meet some great people like you and Seth and some of the other guys up here. And, you know, I'm so thankful for that. You know, Bill is just, just the utmost stand-up guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, the first time I met Bill, I was like, this is a good guy. And then the more I got to know him, I was like, he's just even fucking better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that guy.
And a guy that's done, like, everything imaginable under the sun.
Yeah.
It's crazy, some of the stories he's got.
Yeah. I'm going to have VA on the podcast, and Bill doesn't know, but he's in lineup. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but he's going to come on the podcast. He probably doesn't want to, but I'm going to.
Just make him. I think it'd be great. There would be a lot of good talk on that show. I can't wait to hear that episode.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
So just for fun shit, like, what's your favorite race movie, or do you fucking hate race movies?
So there's really only one that's worth the shit. It's
In your opinion.
Yeah. Well, because, so I'm a guy, my girlfriend hates watching movies with me, because I'm like, well, that's not realistic. You know, like, come on, you know? So there's only one that really fits the, you know, is like really realistic. And it's Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise. I mean, it's the most spot on racing movie that there is. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some things in it, but I've watched that movie probably 100 times. And I mean, there's some other racing movies out there, but they're just, you know, I'll watch them, but it's like, I can't not comment like, what, that wouldn't happen, you know?
Right. What about Ford versus Ferrari?
I haven't watched that one.
Okay.
Which I don't know.
But is that a different world for you? Different type of racing? So it's not
yeah. It's more like the road racing type stuff.
Right.
And I mean, I love all racing, but you know, if I'm gonna watch it, it's gonna be something that like, you know, like Days of Thunder is based off of NASCAR, and it's based off of a true story too. So that's what's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a next step for you in racing, or are you want to be the champion in this league, this division? Because you mentioned, obviously, I can't go through them all. We'd have to have a whole nother show. Here's a whole list. If anyone wants to email me or let me reach out to me or you, I can send you this to you. But is there a, like, because I'm learning so much about racing, especially living here in Indiana now.
Yeah.
Is there a next? Are you like, is NASCAR next, or that's not even something you want, or like Indy racing, you know? And I'm throwing those out because those are popular ones that I know.
So as like a little kid, you know, my dream was always to race in NASCAR, but I mean, honestly, it's not about the racer anymore. It's about the almighty dollar, and it's not based on talent anymore. So it was, you know, it was kind of hard. It was a tough pill to swallow. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some of the most talented racers in the world in the NASCAR divisions, but I mean,
if they don't have a good car and good money, they're fucked.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's that. There's always a step up. We could move up to what's called a late model, which is what we ran on pavement. They have them on dirt too. So that's cool. We can move up to that. I mean, we've ran ARCA racing, like ARCA races before. We ran 2 of them. And that was a step below the NASCAR Truck Series. So, but I mean, hey, you know, we didn't catch anybody's eye and didn't get any financial backing. So we just went back down to asphalt late models, and we ran a couple more years, and we're like, you know what, let's try something new. So we went to Dirt World. It's good to start out in the modifieds. I wouldn't be mad if I ran a modified the rest of my life.
Okay.
But if someone came to me tomorrow and was like, hey, I want you to drive this, I'm going to go drive it because I love racing.
Because you're a wheel man.
Yeah, I love driving. So, you know, if someone offers up a ride, yeah, I'll do it. You know, as long as it's, you know, safe, obviously.
Right.
You know? But yeah, I love racing. I'm not going to say no to climbing in somebody's car, especially if they're footing the bill. Right. I mean, you know, that just makes it even better.
Because the money really comes from, unless you're just extremely wealthy, the money comes from sponsorship.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I've been blessed over the past couple of years getting some really good people and, you know, getting involved with some people like you to help me and to do what I love. And, you know, I try and put on a good persona and, you know, be a, you know, good person to advocate for these businesses and these people helping me. And, you know, like the Wahlburgers thing was a prime example.
Right.
You know, if I'm an asshole and I'm like, you know, I'm not signing your t-shirt or whatever, you know, they're going to be like, get out of here, pull our sticker off your car and get out of here.
Yeah.
You know,
right. Exactly.
But, you know, first of all, I wouldn't do that. I'm not money driven for that. I love to do it because it's what I love. And it helps because it makes everybody look good too. And that's what I like. You know, I can wear a brand and promote somebody's brand and help, you know, because you're helping me in something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to be passionate to help you. So,
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because I know the podcast, Everyday GSD podcast, sponsored you last year.
Yeah.
And then when Bill came up to me this year and he said, did you want to do it again? And, you know, I didn't get to go to a race last year. I was extremely busy, but, you know, you guys were updating me, and I was very honored that I heard so many good things about you as a person, let alone, luckily for me, you fucking won. My first year sponsoring you, and I said this first year, my podcast, and then, so yeah, I'm honored to sponsor you again this year.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to really fucking get after it.
Yeah, and I'm so very thankful for that, you know, because like I say, without people and friends like you, I mean, putting your faith in me and letting me carry the brand and, you know, embrace it, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So that's where I'm heartfelt about it. And, you know, I can get behind a movement like Everyday GSD because I love to get shit done. You know, it's so motivational, and I love it when people ask me, they're like, so what is that? I'm like, let me tell you, it's my buddy Darin, and it's everyday get shit done. And I love it. That's, you know, that's what we do. We just get shit done around here. So if you don't want to get shit done, you know, I can't hang out with you.
I love it. Well, listen, you're probably going to be a little embarrassed here, but I want to say a couple things here. This is from a couple of your fans and friends I got this. So this is about you. You get shit done because, well, it's like but I'm saying you get shit done because you build a good circle and you value and trust. You get shit done by knowing and understanding and even writing down things you wish to achieve. You get shit done, the sense of racing shop by working your ass off way past when others call it quits. You never fucking quit. And you get shit done because your determination to succeed in something you love, which clearly I believe because you love racing, you love the family aspect of it, you love being around good people. And for me as a podcast, I'm honored to sponsor you. I'll have you, if you have anything else before we wrap it up, if you want to say to anyone getting into racing or any of your fans out there, and then I've got a little gift for you. So I'll hand it over to you.
Man, basically, if you're one of my fans, one of my peers, or you're just a young person or, you know, even an older person wanting to get involved in the motorsports industry, feel free to message me if you've got any questions or anything that I can help you with or lead you in the right direction or tell you what not to do because maybe I've made that mistake and it's like, you know, don't do that, you know, live and learn. Because life is trial and error. You know, what you might learn today, you might not use tomorrow, but you know, 10 years down the road, it's like, you know, I've got that in the back of my head. But, you know, yeah, that's all I can say is, you know, anything that I can do to advocate for the sport or, you know, keep somebody coming to support me or support, you know, you might hate me, you might boo me when I win, but I still need you in the seats because if you're not there supporting the racetrack, we're not there. So anything I can do to advocate the sport or further answer anybody's questions or anything, or if I can be somebody's inspiration, you know, by all means, I'm here.
Well, believe me, brother, I appreciate you being on the show, and I know you'll be lots of people's inspiration. You're still very young at this, not at the racing because you've been doing it for a long time, but just in life. You got a lot of years left, and I'm excited to watch you continue on your journey. And I have a little gift for you. True fashion of the Everyday GSD show. I've got you a Everyday GSD hat, white camo, which I think will look awesome on you. And then, of course, an Everyday GSD t-shirt.
Awesome.
Because I know you get shit every fucking day. And I want to thank you for being on the show. I'm looking forward to having a couple of your buddies on the show, especially VA. And again, Bill, he doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be on the fucking loop. But thank you, man. I want you to have a great day. And thank you for spending time with us. I know the listeners are going to love this episode.
No problem. Thanks for having me, man. It was a blast.
All right, brother. Love you.
Love you too, man.
Thanks for watching the Everyday GSD podcast. Episodes come out on the 1st and 15th of the month. If you want to watch people or listen to people that Everyday GSD, please download and subscribe wherever you listen or watch the Everyday GSD podcast. Everyday GSD.